Hi, this is Dr. Thomas Armstrong, and in this presentation I'd like to focus on the disappearance of childhood in our culture, and I want to give you 15 indicators of childhood's demise in America. In my 20th book, a novel entitled Childless, I tell the story about a childless child psychologist who tries to foil a U.S. government plot to declare childhood as a medical disorder and then eliminate it from the human genome. The novel is a darkly comedic satire about something very serious that is going on in American culture: the physical, sexual, emotional, and verbal abuse of children, and the encroachment of adult values, attitudes, and behaviors onto the institution of childhood. The very things that make children so heartwarming and special, their curiosity, creativity, playfulness, imagination, wonder, inventiveness, and humor, are under assault from all sides. Here are 15 indicators of how this is happening in America today. Childhood abuse and neglect. Childhood abuse and neglect are a common occurrence in American life. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report that 1 out of 7 children have experienced child abuse or neglect in the past year in the United States. And they go on to say that this is likely an underestimate because many cases are unreported. Exposure to adult media. Young children are being exposed to adult content, including sexual situations, foul language, and violence, through streaming videos, video games, television, social media, and other forms of mass media. In one survey, 50% of participants reported being exposed to sexual media by the 8th grade. And research suggested that sexually explicit media exposure predicted early sexual debut, unsafe sex, and multiple sexual partners. Sexualization through toys, ads, pageants, and media. Children, and especially girls, are increasingly being sexualized through magazine advertisements, beauty pageants, toys and dolls, clothing, and other cultural manifestations. A study in the academic journal Body Image suggested that sexualized messages appear to be internalized by very young girls, which in turn has negative implications for how they feel about their bodies. Rising developmental expectations at early ages. Kindergarten and preschool students are engaged in first and second grade tasks these days, with more academics and less time to play. One study, for example, found that in 1998, 31% of teachers believed their students should learn to read during the kindergarten year. That figure jumped to 80% by 2010. In 2010, 73% of kindergartners took some kind of standardized test. 1/3 took tests at least once a month. In 1998, they didn't even ask kindergarten teachers that question. But even the first grade teachers in 1998 reported giving far fewer tests than the kindergarten teachers did in 2010. Governmental neglect of pro-child initiatives. The U.S. government fails to support child care and child assistance programs that benefit families and help children reach appropriate developmental goals. A 2021 report from the U.S. Treasury reported that parents are asked to pay for child care when they can least afford it and with little ability to borrow against their future savings to cover the costs of care for young children. Federal funding to help support families, especially those in poverty, is unlikely to happen soon. Lawmakers in Washington cut early childhood funding from a major federal spending proposal that passed the Senate in August 2022. Flouting of child labor laws. Children are working illegally as laborers in adult jobs. According to a 2010 petition by Human Rights Watch, hundreds of thousands of children are employed as farm workers in the United States, often working 10 or more hours a day. They are often exposed to dangerous pesticides, experience high rates of injury, and suffer fatalities at 5 times the rate of other working youth. The shortage of labor inspections means that many cases of illegal child labor are not reported, let alone mitigated. Illegal child labor practices in other industries have also been reported. High levels of maternal mortality. The record of maternal care and the rate of maternal mortality in the United States is dismal. The U.S. ranks 46th in the world in the rate of maternal mortality, despite spending more than 2.5 times on health than the average among OECD countries. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, for every maternal death, there are 75 to 100 more women who suffer a life-threatening complication during pregnancy or childbirth. Poor maternity outcomes lead to low birth weight babies, babies with birth defects, and children who are at a significant disadvantage compared with other kids before they're barely out of the starting gate. Ruined lives due to poverty and hunger. Millions of children are living in poverty in the United States, which places serious limits on their ability to thrive physically, emotionally, and mentally. In America, nearly 11 million children are poor. That's 1 in 7 kids, who make up almost 1/3 of all people living in poverty in this country. The U.S. ranks 36th among advanced countries in the world in the rate of child poverty. Children growing up in poverty have higher levels of physical and mental health problems, greater likelihood of involvement with the juvenile justice system, and poorer employment outcomes as adults. Millions of children are hungry in America. Statistics suggest that 1 in every 6 children in the U.S. are living in a food-insecure household. The lack of a proper diet creates nutritional deficiencies that are injurious to proper brain development, contributing to both physical and mental disabilities when children are at their most vulnerable period of development in life. Rampant child pornography. The abuse of children through the production of child pornography is an ever-present reality in today's media-saturated culture. A recent New York Times article pointed to a lack of oversight in filtering out child pornography at the website Pornhub, which attracts 3.5 billion visits a month, more than Netflix, Yahoo, or Amazon. One ranking lists Pornhub as the 10th most visited website in the world. A search for girls under 18, quote unquote, or quote 14YO, meaning years old, unquote, led in each case to more than 100,000 videos. In many of these videos, teens or preteens are raped. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children indicates over 29 million reports of child sexual exploitation per year in the U.S. Homeless children. Many children find themselves and their families homeless in America. A 2021 study by the Child Care Services Association found that 1.3 million infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, 1 in 18 children under the age of 6, experience homelessness every year. Without the security and stability that a home provides, these kids don't have a foundation upon which to build their hopes, dreams, and goals in life. Decrease in children at play. Children are playing less and spending more time on mass media. In the book, Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder by Richard Louv, a fourth grade boy commented, quote, "I like to play indoors better because that's where all the electrical outlets are," end quote. Gone are the free play activities the children created on their own, using their imagination and creativity. And in their place are video games, social chat rooms, television, streaming content, and other virtual, i.e. unreal, experiences. Daily screen use for 8 to 12-year-olds has risen to 5 hours and 33 minutes a day. That's recreational use. In my own writings, I've suggested that this decrease in free play and increase in mass media consumption is a major contributor to the epidemic of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, that we've seen over the past 30 years in our society. Children's creativity is on the decline. This creativity is on the decline in part due to the schools devoting too much time to standardized testing and core academic subjects like reading, math, and science. As a result of federal legislation over the past 40 years, teachers are under pressure to assign more homework, schedule more standardized tests, and give more focus to reading, math, and science at the expense of art, music, drama, and other creative subjects. One consequence of this, according to at least one important research study, has been a decline in creativity among young children. Reaching puberty at earlier and earlier ages. Girls are starting puberty at earlier and earlier ages, with many developing breasts at ages as young as 6 or 7. A similar pattern, though less extreme, has been observed in boys. Some scientists believe this may be linked to increased exposure to blue light emanating from computer screens that kids spend too much time staring at. Missing and abducted children, a common occurrence. The phenomenon of missing or abducted children is shockingly common in America. Every 40 seconds, a child goes missing or is abducted in the United States. Approximately 840,000 people are reported missing each year, and the FBI estimates that between 85 and 90% of these are children. Increase in families with no children. Statistics indicate that the number of families with no children has increased in the United States over the last 2 decades. Whether this is a result of rising infertility or socioeconomic factors, the Institute for Family Studies says that family life in America is changing. Marriage is increasingly being postponed, cohabitation is rising, more young people are living with parents or grandparents, and childbearing is falling. So I hope you can see why I wrote a novel called Childless, about a U.S. government plot to remove childhood from the human genome. I wrote this darkly comedic satire as a way of calling attention to these kinds of attacks that are on childhood and children around the United States, as well as in other parts of the world as well. You can order Childless on Amazon. It's available as a paperback or as an ebook to read on your Kindle, your tablet, or your smartphone. In some of my other writing, I've focused attention on the natural genius of children, how every child comes into the world born to experience the joy of learning. Every child comes into the world curious, imaginative, creative, inventive, and playful. And we need to preserve those qualities of genius, of wonderment within the child. If we let this go, if we destroy this, we have destroyed our culture and the civilization that grows around it. Thank you very much, and I hope that this presentation has made you think about what's going on with our children today.